Hello, nice to see you. Thank you. I know we are waiting for the.
Yeah, she just bought a drink.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay. I'm Karsten. What you have to know about me, you can read in the booklet. And whenever you have any more questions, you can ask me later. Don't waste too much time by talking about myself. I've created a circle because we are talking about a relationship-oriented topic, and we should have the chance to look into each other's eyes. Thank you that you've chosen to be here. I would love to share with you some thoughts and attitudes that have helped me in meeting people and creating helpful relationships. As I'm educated as a systemic family therapist, I've seen that many interesting attitudes and principles of systemic thinking do a lot benefit when we are in counseling situations or in church situations or in family situations in our churches. And we'll just see what happens with us when we talk about it. And whenever you have questions or remarks or oppositions, just feel free to say whatever you want to say. And I would love to pray before we start. Jesus, I thank you for this morning. I thank you for the time that we have right now here. It's good that we are a little group, it's more private, and we can just experience what you want to take us to or take us through in our thoughts and feelings. And what I ask you, because we all come from typical individual situations in our ministries or in our private life, that you might touch us and give us good insight in whatever we need. Amen. Hi. Welcome. Just enter the circle. Okay, before we enter into the topic, I would love to give us 2 minutes by getting to know each other a little bit, just a little bit. So please take 2 minutes with someone in the room you don't know. Tell the person what is your name, say where you come from, and say why you've chosen to be in this workshop. Okay, right now just a minute, so that we might know a little bit more about each other than we do. Okay, now. We have 2 more seats here in the circle. Perfect. We need more chairs. Hi. I'll take you chair from here. I'm just taking 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot more we can tell each other about ourselves. Okay. As you wrote in the booklet, the framing story for today will be the story of Jesus and the woman
who has just been caught in adultery, and the way how he handles this problem, and how he handles the problematic construction the Pharisees and the people had towards this woman. And I would like to say that everything that that I try to unfold with you today has a lot to do with learning from Jesus. Even though we are talking about a psychological system like systemic constructive thinking, but for me as a Christian, as an example of Jesus, it has a lot to do with the way how Jesus sees people and how he's getting along with people and trying to find helpful solutions for problems. And before we enter into the story, hello, we have one more chair for you here in the circle. This is the entrance. Okay, great. So you're caring about your friend, that's good. Hi. From a systemic point of view, we say that every one of us can see the world as a reality only from his or her own individual perspective. I cannot, hello, one more chair for you. To everyone I say we have one more chair, and so which means that when I talk about reality, I never talk about an objective reality that could in any kind of way be proved scientifically, because I have my own personal perspective, I have my glasses, and I actually, even though I can put them off, I inside cannot put them off. And this is not a problem, that's okay, because this is the way as it is. We all have our personal biographies, we all have our family stories, we all have our personalities, we all have our views on life, and so every one of us contributes an important perspective to the whole. And wherever people meet, these different realities meet, and at its best we can create a new reality together. And I love to think in stories, because actually when I talk about my life, I tell you a story. We just told each other a little story about ourselves. It's the story of my family, it's the story of my personality, it's the story of how I have developed, it's the story about how I work, it's the story about my faith, the story about our church. It's interesting, we are all Adventists. I presume we are all Adventists. And if every one of us would tell his personal story about how she or he is Adventist, we would have a wonderful collection of totally different stories. Not just because we are from different cultures, even inside our own countries we have these differences. And that's interesting. And these stories we tell create reality. The way how I talk about my church, the way how I talk about Jesus, the way how I talk about my faith creates a reality. And I have found out that I can tell different stories about myself and about my family. And these different stories would display different perspectives or different situations that I've experienced. And it creates a reality. When someone comes in the counseling to a counseling setting and has a big problem, the way how this person is telling the problem is very interesting, because the way how he or she is telling the problem creates reality. You can talk about depressive feelings in different ways. You can talk about anger in different ways. And from the counseling perspective, you can react in different ways. And this has a lot to do with how at the end of the process, we have found a new perspective, a difference that might help us find a solution if we need a solution. And that's very interesting for me. And what I just said at its best, storytelling at its best would be that the stories that meet are open enough in order to get together and create a new reality. And so at this point we have to say that it's not just about the stories, but it's about the question, what kind of a story do we have? Do we have an open story. So, I mean, when I talk about my life, about my family, about myself, in a way that seems to be very open, full of varieties and possibilities. Like there is a way, but there are also different ways I can take in the way how I see life and how change might be possible. And on the other hand, we can talk about in closed stories, pretty rigid, clear which way we walk and the way how we walk it. And there is, if there is any space, just a little to get a different track. In therapy language, we say that in some families, people have been raised in so rigid stories that they have become chronic. And that whenever as a child or as a part of a family, you try to find another way of living. You choose another track, which actually is not possible seen from the mainstream family. You are thrown out of a family. So the more open our stories are, the easier it might be, this is my thesis, it might be to get into relationships. Because it's easier for me to understand and to accept what you say, even though it might be totally different from my own perspective. And seen from this side, the story of Jesus and this woman who had just been caught in adultery is a miracle. Even though no one was healed physically, normally we say miracles are stories where Jesus heals people from physical sickness. Right here, he heals a woman from a psychological illness. And he gives the people around her a chance to be healed, but they don't take it. Yes, and this story is a wonderful perspective to derive different things and principles from. This is a nice picture, but you cannot see it because it's too... My remote is here.
Yeah.
Thank you. I always lose it during my sermons. You cannot really see it well because it's very light, but it's okay. I would like to read the text with you, and after the text, I would like to try to step into the story with you in order to get more understandings. I would like to do a sculpture with you. Like everybody of us is a part of the story, and we just need someone who voluntarily says, I'm ready to be the woman for 20 minutes, whatever. And then we'll see what can happen. It's in John chapter 8, the first 11 verses. I read from the English Standard Version. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning he came again to the temple. And all the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and placing her in the midst. This is a very good situation. That she was caught in act. No discussion. Clear situation. And they said to him, verse 4, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now the law of Moses commanded us to stone such woman. What do you say? This they said to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up and said to her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more. I need one person who is the woman. It can either be a man or a woman, I don't care. And I need 3 or 4 Pharisees, and the rest of us are the folks. Anyone? It will not hurt. We just take the wool hank and play a little bit with you. But
No
this is-
stones.
No, really. These are the stones.
I can be the woman.
Thank you very much.
If there is no stones.
No, it's just the wool hank. It's totally okay. Would you come here?
Yeah.
Thank you. What's your name?
Anna.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, 3, 4, 5 Pharisees. Just come up.
I'm the 5 Pharisees.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the size of the fire.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just come up. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, and you might be the people who are sitting right now, sitting around, watching what happens there. And for me, if I were one of you, I would have this inner feeling like, I'm happy they have not caught me. Because if I were in the middle, I mean, would you come step more in the middle here? So, and you start to wrap her up in this wool hank.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll move.
Yeah. Not too strong, that she still feels. It's just a game, it's not the truth. She has to feel comfortable to a certain degree. Right?
Yeah.
Don't tie it too much, but a little bit. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Shall we continue or that's enough?
Just 2, 3 rounds, and that's okay. And then you can just put the hand down on the floor. Thank you. She had a problem because she has sinned. And that's her problem. It doesn't have anything to do with us. Nothing. She's in the middle. She had just been caught, so there's nothing that she can ever say in order to get out of the situation. It is as it is. And it is a clear consequence. This is what the law of Moses says. It's the law of Moses, not the law of the Pharisees, not the law self-made by the people because they are bad people, but it's what God commanded. She has to be punished for her sins, either by sickness or execution. That's it. That's the will of God. It's interesting in this situation that we often experience that in our families or in churches, that the attempt to solve a problem can become the problem itself. So I would say in this story, the problem that is most important for me, seen from my perspective in the story, is not that this woman has sinned, but that the way how the Pharisees tried to solve this problem was the problem. Because they wanted to eliminate sin. They know they were all sinners. I think that the Pharisees were good people who tried, also by themselves, tried not to sin too
Are you
much.
sure about it?
Yeah.
Because the text says that they wanted to catch Jesus more than the woman.
Yeah, they misused her for her sake, I guess. Right? But I think they were always looking and trying to understand how even they themselves could be better in order not to be punished by God. Okay, so they thought the best way we could choose in order to eliminate sin, in order to solve the problem, is to execute one of us, which is the woman right now. And she's totally isolated there in the middle, standing there. No one of these people, except Jesus, would have to ask himself or herself, because she has the problem. Whatever Jesus wrote on the floor, what Jesus started to do is changing the perspective I would say that, would you come to the front here more, like this? Just split a half circle here in the front. May I touch you? He took the woman and placed her next to the people in this half circle. And then started by his writing and questioning to unwrap her and connect her with the others. I would say that the Pharisees lived in a pretty rigid story. They just had one perspective on the situation. There's a problem, and to this problem there's one solution. Cause and effect. Linear thinking. She has the problem. And we can help her solve it. And by the way, test Jesus in order to get the whole package. Jesus, as he starts to ask this question, says something like, have you ever thought about the fact that you could have the same problem as this woman does? Could it be that the way how she acted has a lot to do with the way how the whole community acts? Could it be that it is not just that she has a problem, that she's totally isolated in the middle of us, but that she is totally interconnected with all of us? And the solution can only be found in a different community with each other. May the first one may the one who has no sin throw the first stone. This woman does not have a problem alone. Actually, we all have the same problem because we all fall short of God's will. We are all unable to live a perfect life, and we all need forgiveness for our sins. So this woman is not the problem, but she displays the problem of the whole group. And the problem of our group is we have already not found a way to get along with our sins in a way that it would be helpful. That it might help us to, not to sin anymore, because we will always be sinners and sin, but to find a way to get along with our sins, that we find helpful solutions for our problems. We are interconnected. We are not isolated from each other. And everything that I do has to do with the whole group. It would have been very interesting if this would have been a therapy story and Jesus would have been the therapist or the counselor. Would have been interesting if he had started to ask the people questions. What could you contribute to help this woman next time? What do you think, woman, if you change your life right now, who of us would be most angry about it? Because it doesn't fit in this picture he has from the group or of you. Or do you think there's anyone in here who would be most happy about it? Who could be the best gas station for you to tank power for your new way? And this way of questioning would include everyone of the group to be a part of the solution. And if the Pharisees had stayed, if they would have been able to listen to Jesus' thoughts and questions, they would have gained different perspectives and find a helpful way to get along. But they couldn't stand that. This is why they went away. What a pity. And Jesus let them go. He didn't run after them. Wait, I have a few more perspectives for you. Come on. I have questions I could ask you. I have biblical scriptures I could read with you in order to understand the whole thing. But they didn't want to. And at the end, Jesus stands alone with the woman. And there is another interesting thing that happens, which I think is very important for our image of man in counseling or in any situation when we meet people. Jesus does something that I, as the father, don't understand. Because normally when my teenage daughter does something, whatever, of what I had known before that it might be problematic, and she fails and she comes home, I would say, Luna, that's her name, I've told you. So why did you? For what reason? Why don't you listen to me? And you know next time. And you know what? This was the third time right now. We now have to make a contract. And you have to promise to change your life. 1, 2, 3 points. Things that we change. Okay, I'm able to change something too if you need some help. Okay, I will. 1 or 2 things, you do 4 and 5. And next Thursday we'll meet again and talk about it again and see what happened. I've learned that this is okay in pedagogics, and I do that sometimes. I think I do it in another way, but it's interesting that the story doesn't say that Jesus did that. He just asked the woman where all these people were gone. And if no one has condemned her, she says no one. Do you know what hurts me? What hurts me the most? When someone catches me in an act of problematic thing like a sin, and I know it myself. I do know it myself. And the other person comes along and tells me, Karsten, do you know? Yes, I do know. I do know. And when someone comes and just looks into my eyes, and his eyes say something like grace or forgiveness, this has a so intensive impact on me that there is a lot of space opening up in my heart for change. Because I see that this person looking in my eyes sees that I've understood and that he trusts me, that with the help of the Holy Spirit I can change. And it's great that Jesus sees that in this woman. He sees that everything that had to happen in her heart in order to change has already happened. And that he can trust her. Just say, do it. Don't do it again. And if I had been the one, I would have answered, yes, I won't. I don't know how many times she failed after it. I just know how many times I failed. When I come back with the same sin every week again. Sometimes every day again. Sometimes twice a day. Jesus has this image of a man where he sees the good inside. And this is what he wants to activate in order to initiate change. And for this side, you need a positive image of a man to trust someone. And from this attitude that Jesus displays in the story, we can derive some more thoughts that we're going on with right now in order to meet people and help them find solutions and perspectives on problems. Thank you very much. Just put the wool hang down. I just have to take some looks on the watch sometimes. This is one of the most, what I would say is one of the most important things in meeting people, in leading churches and in counseling, that we always find as many possibilities and perspectives as possible in order to to widen the range of options that we have in decisions. And when I have this straight cause and effects thinking, like there's the cause and there's the effect, and it's always the same, it's predictable, there's not much space. And what Jesus does here is he's building a circle, and he says that whatever happens in the circle is happens because of different interactions in a recursive way, in a circular way. And it's interesting to know the interactions. You know, at the moment, what I just tried to display, at the moment when I asked the woman who she thinks would be the most angry about a change in her life, everybody would be included in the process. And I would have to think about my own perspective, even though I was sitting on the chair like, she has said I didn't do anything. I remember a family coming to my counseling. The boy was 14 years old, teenager, hyperactive. That's one of the most typical Northern German diagnosis, hyperactivity, whatever that might be. And the parents came together with the boy, and someone had to drive the car, of course. My father was there too. And they had this feeling like, you know, you are the pastor, you are the therapist, fix this boy for us. You know, you might know what we can do. And it was interesting, I did this check. The father was sitting on the side like this. Okay, it's like 45 minutes, see what the pastor does. And the first question I asked the boy was, what would you have to do to make your father really angry? And that was a moment where the father felt a little uncomfortable because he was, he was sitting here waiting that I do something with his son. But I knew that what this son displays is a situation in the whole family and not just in his own life. And this is how perspectives opens, because we are looking into relationships. There are two very famous quotations from an Austrian and a German philosopher or therapist or a communication specialist that I love, and you have to know them too. The first is Heinz von Förster. He says, always act so that the variety of options shall expand. Try to open as many doors as possible in order to find different connections, relations, and perspectives that could give you a clue of a solution for a situation where you need a solution from. Shows you a different way of walking in order to see things differently. You can, if you want to, you can have the slides as PDF afterwards, and they will be uploaded on the homepage of Paul's Meeting, I guess. And the second, Paul Watzlawick might be many of you might know Paul Watzlawick. He says, if you hold a hammer only, you treat any problem as a nail. I like this. When I say I have a hammer and my hammer is my core tool to solve problems, I will treat any problem as a nail, because a hammer is there to nail a nail into the wall or into the wood. So, and widening the options, expanding the variety of options would mean to have as many tools in my toolbox as possible to react differently on the different problems or situations or people. So the first attitude to take in some systematic thing is, the first attitude of being in relation is to understand that reality unfolds in relation. Whenever I talk to someone, even if I talk to him or her alone, without the family or the church around, I try to see how this person is related in the setting. That's really interesting. even if the mother or the father or the church elder or the youth leader is not here in this relationship, when I talk to a person, I try to ask questions that include these people to see if this person could catch a glimpse from the outside on her or himself in order to see what could happen. The other thing that is important about the reality in relationships has to do with the stories I was saying in the beginning. A friend of mine has a T-shirt. I don't know if you can see anything. There's a number laying between these two people, and whatever perspective you have, it's a 6 or a 9. Both are right. I don't know if you know that when you sometimes, when you are in a situation where you talk with people who are in a struggle, young people or whoever in the church or in your family, and both of these people want to pull you on his or her side. And it would be nice if the pastor or the youth leader or whoever talks with us now would agree with me and help me to convince you that this is a 6 and not a 9. This is why I always tell people in conflict talks, I always tell people in the beginning that I will both believe them 100%. Whatever he or she might tell me, I believe that, and I don't have to ask that. Because that's their reality. And it doesn't help if I come from the outside and say, you know what, I have a kind of objective view on this. It is like this and this and this and this and that. You have to understand that, so try to get away from your position. I think as a counselor, this cannot be my perspective. As a pastor, I sometimes have to say that. Sometimes as a pastor, when I leave the church, I have to say, even though you think it's a 9, we will go the 6 way now, because I'm responsible, and the church elders and me have concluded that we have to choose this way right now. But we still want to try to understand why you see a 9 in the 6, even though I cannot imagine. But it's different in counseling, because in a counseling setting we are always neutral. This is not easy sometimes. Sometimes, especially when I talk with couples, you know, I surely have my own personality and my own perspective, and my own likes and dislikes. And sometimes I say like, oh, how could this woman live with this man? Or differently. And I'm having a hard time trying to let this be their thing in their system. But it is always very important for us all to understand and to tell our people that we believe them as their perspective. It's not the iPhone, it's the iMessage. In German we have the Ich-Botschaft, the good old iMessage. I don't know how you say it in other languages. That when I say something about reality, I say how I see it. I feel, I want, I need, I don't like. And not, it is as it is. That's a very old thing. I learned that in theology school 25 years ago, but it's great. Whoever was the inventor of this one is good. Because it clearly points out that I don't know what reality is, and that I accept that you are different from me. And when I understand that, God has a chance to change and to use this humility. That's humble. And I'm ready to say what I say, and that I say that this is not the reality. It's a certain kind of humbleness. And Jesus needs that in order to take me and change. This brings us to the second attitude, which for me is very interesting. That when I meet a person, that I'm just curious how this person thinks and acts and why she or he thinks and acts, without evaluating it. I had a hard time to find a good English word. In Deutsch wir würden sagen bewerten. Ne? see a situation without evaluating, without judging it, without putting it in a prefix frame. This is not easy. You know, everything that I see, I always have a frame for it. I open a drawer, put it inside, close it, and I have fix it. Sometimes it's just a few seconds. I see you and I have my evaluation. Especially when it comes to a sin. We have learned to evaluate and to judge. Of course, I would never say Jesus did not say to the woman, it's okay, twice a week it's okay, but try not to do it 3 times. He clearly says that sin no more. But the way how he handles the situation, the way how he sees the woman, and what I think, sees the desire that lays behind her sin. From a therapeutical point of view, I would say sin many times is we are trying to find a solution for our desires. We are trying to find a way for the things we really need, but we lose track. And so the interesting question would be what is the desire behind this wrong act? What is that what you really want? So that we can see if there is a way to find this desire, to find a solution for this desires and a satisfaction in a helpful way. But to be able to open this space with a person, I think everyone who comes and talks to us needs, and I would also say deserves, someone in you and in me who does not evaluate and judge and put me in prefixed frames, but just sees me. It hurts me when I I started to pastor the church I pastored for 9 years before we went back to Hanover. Many people told me, Karsten, the people in Gifhorn, that was the town, the people in Gifhorn are talking about you. I mean, you are known here in this conference, and the people know about you. You do this and that, and you are here and there. That hurt me. Because the people didn't know me. And they were talking about me because they had heard anyone say anything about me. Or they have heard a sermon and thought this is a liberal pastor who does not preach the Adventist message. That hurts me because I don't feel understood. And I think that this is the problem in our society, and it should be totally different in our churches. That we look into each other's eyes openly, and that we are curious about what is there. What do you think? What you just said sounds very crazy and stupid to me, but I want to understand what is it. Tell me. Maybe I can sit next to you and try to look out of your perspective and see if there's anything good in it that would help me, and we can create a new reality together. Open stories. I always have to look on my concept if I have forgotten to say something very important. Anything you want to say or ask to this? I don't want to talk you under your chair. A third thing that adds to this, I do not fix who you are, but I describe what you do. I remember, no, it's not just my children, it's me too. My daughter once come home from school like, Johanna is crazy and stupid. I said, okay, why is she crazy and stupid? And she was describing what she did in school, like, they had an argument, like people have arguments. Or Sometimes my daughters fight with each other, which is totally normal and healthy and okay. And I always hear these, she is like this, and she always is this. And she always says, I am like this. And one day, we started to talk about what is the difference between being and acting. When I think you are stupid, everything that you do will be stupid. When I'm convinced that you are a fool, you don't have any chance to do anything that is not foolish in my sight. I, of course, act stupidly. I, of course, act foolishly. I am, of course, doing wrong things. But this does not make me a wrong person. So whenever I say in a negative context, say who you are, I put you in a fixed frame. And everything you do, I see it through the glasses. And I know for myself that with some people I don't really like, I'm waiting on a situation when I can say, I knew it. Yes! I knew it. There's one thing that we can clearly say about our being. And this is what Paul says in Romans 8, verse 15. That the Spirit of God gets in contact with our spirit to tell us that we are children of God. This is who we are. This is how Jesus treats this woman. Even though we don't know who she was. I guess Ellen White says she was a whore. I don't know. We have different perspectives on if she was married or not, if it was just once or twice, or if she was making money with it. We don't know. But Jesus saw her as a daughter of God. He condemned her acting, but in a way that still kept her, was heißt Würde?
Dignity.
Yeah, which still kept her dignity. And I wish that people in our churches, in our youth groups, when they meet us, still have this feeling of a dignity and taking seriously in their problems. That open space. I remember a few years ago, a young Baptist man came to me in counseling. He was married, had 2 children, and he wanted to start a counseling because he had a pornography problem. He watched YouTube videos, and his wife knew that, and she said, you have to change or you get problems. And he knew I was a pastor and a therapist, and the way how we didn't know each other before, but the way how he came into my office clearly showed me that he was coming and that he was awaiting me to judge him. Like okay, it's a bit of black and white how I say it right now, but it might make it clear what I mean. He was sitting there like, okay, Pastor, I know, spank me, tell me that I'm a bad man, and pray with me, and I confess my sin, and maybe you have a good idea because you're a therapist, and then everything will change. And it was really irritating for him that I didn't say and command anything to this pornography problem. I just said, we don't have to talk about that. You are here because it doesn't help your relationship. Sure, it's not good. You know that. I don't have to tell you what you already know. I already told you that this is what is hurting me the most. But I already know someone's telling me again. And he said, when you have this problem, you have it, you act like this because you must have a benefit of it. If you would not have a benefit of it, you would not act like this. Everything that we do has a benefit for us. Everything that we do, however strange it might seem from the outside, does make sense in our inner thinking system. No man acts without any inner sense. So let's see what this gives you. And we're talking much about his fantasies his problems to tell his wife what he really wants. You know, this sin and the desire beyond it or under it became room. And this is how the perspective got wider and we found solutions. He found perspectives to change. It was a hard way for him, but that was a situation where I experienced how important it is not to put anything into this fixed frame, like this. There's just one solution. No, there are many, many different solutions. And it's great how I experienced in our process talking over months and years, how his posture changed. I think he got back a little bit of his self-felt dignity. That was wonderful. That was like kind of healing for him. He had space. I don't know your background, why you're here, if you are counseling much or talking to young people. I'm a pastor, and as you are experiencing right now, I talk much. And I love to hear you talking. And when I started to do more counseling, and within my therapy education, I found out that I'm still talking too much. And whenever in a situation when I talk with someone, we enter a certain silence, which is very important. The silence is an intervention. After a few minutes, I feel myself cropping up all these millions of advices and ideas and perspectives. I could tell this person to let him or her understand what could happen. If I were you, I would whatever. And I'm learning more and more, and it's really hard for me that sometimes it's better to ask questions, not to give advices. I'm happy that I'm a pastor because people come to me to get advices. They don't want to hear questions. But whenever sometimes, not often, but sometimes I ask a good questions. I ask a good question, and I feel that it helps the people more than my advices. Because if I ask a question, I help you think about yourself and your inner system. And as Jesus saw this woman in our systemic point of view about people, we believe that the solution is already there. The solution is already there. You just don't have a situation or ability to grab it right now. You don't know it, but it is there. And God is blessing what is in there, in you. And I can only find it when I ask questions, so that you come into a thinking process about yourself. And the questions should be as open as possible. Normally, the classical why questions might not help too much. They are this cause and effect. Why have you done that? Why are you doing that? Sometimes it is helpful, but not all the time. It's more interesting to find questions that point to the future. Solution focused. Many, many years in my life, I have always thought I can solve my problems by clearly understanding them. And I've always thought when I've understood the problem, I have a solution. Sometimes this is the case. This is why I've been believing that many, many years. But what I've also experienced is that when I have the explanation for the problem, I'm pretty tired because it took me a lot of time thinking and evaluating and checking the situation. But I didn't have a solution, I just had an explanation. So, what does it help me that I know that I am shy and don't dare to talk openly? It helps me to gain an understanding for myself and have a positive relationship to myself. Accept me as I am. This is what I mean. So don't misunderstand me. When understanding a problem helps me to accept myself more than I did before, it is very important and good. This is what I've experienced. Jesus only changes me after I've accepted me as I am right now. This is the message I got from Jesus my whole life. I change you when you look into the mirror and say, Karsten, I love you how you are. Loving myself does not mean thinking everything that I do is good. That's not the same. Loving myself, I can love people even though I don't think everything they do is good. I love my wife very much, but sometimes she's going on my nerves. And she loves me and I'm going on her nerves. But this does not change the love. But I would like to spend more energy and more time in finding a solution. And for this, there are two ideas, I don't know if you work with that help me very much. Scaling. Even adults like these pictures. I have many different motives at home. When someone comes to me and says, last Sabbath in youth club, I was so angry about Peter because he was like whatever he did, it was nothing. And I'm so angry. And this person comes to me and says, Karsten, I need to take time talking with you because I'm so angry. I have to talk about it. It's not just a momentaneous angriness or anger, it's more than that. It sometimes helps when I take a scale from 1 to 10. 1 means not very angry, and 10 means almost going into a shop and buying a weapon, whatever. And I would ask the person, say, when you think about Peter in this example, what do you think? How angry have you been right after the youth club on Sabbath night? Where have you been on the scale? How angry? And the person might say, I was at 8. Okay. When he says 8, I would not say, oh, that's much. I would ask, is that much for you? Because what I think is totally unimportant. Because everybody has his own inner scaling principles. And I would second question could be, okay, right after the youth club you were at 8. Where are you right now? It's Monday night, 2 days later. And he would say, today I'm 6. Then I would talk with him about the difference between the 8 and the 6. What has happened during the last 2 days that you came down with your anger? Or I could ask, what would have to happen from Sabbath night until today that you would reach the 10? So what would Peter have to do to make it even worse? Or is there anyone in the group, like Mandy? What could Mandy do in order to make it even worse? If he's in good friendship with Mandy. So I'm trying to give the people a possibility to measure their inner thoughts and feelings and try to, on the scale, try to create differences. 8, 10, 9, 2, 3. And it's interesting that, for example, Peter, whatever, I didn't give it a name. Ken says, I'm on 6 now and I was on 8 on Sabbath night. And yes, it helped me that let's say the easy thing. It helped me that I didn't want to be angry and I prayed about this every time when I prayed. I said, God, I hate Peter, help me. And this helped me to come down. It does not solve the problem, but it's helpful. It's okay. I would say, go on praying. Whatever you think works out good, do it. Do it more, because it helps. When sometimes people are very, very, very inside their feelings and thoughts, and they don't get any connection to a better perspective. I ask questions how it could get worse. And this asking for how it's getting worse, they don't await me asking questions about how it's getting worse. And this irritates. And it's good when it irritates because an irritation makes a difference. And a difference opens space for change.
It's,
Can you give an example of that? How this making it worse can help us play a different internet?
Yeah, okay. What does Ken is the one who's angry and Peter is the one who made him angry. Let me get it together with myself. That was good here. What would Peter have to do? What will Peter have to do that next Sabbath night after the next youth group he will be on the 10? And he's thinking about Peter and how he could do things even worse. Or I better ask a question that puts the activity of the person of Peter in the center, because Peter is the one who can change his life, no one else. No, Ken. I'm sorry.
Ken.
I'm sorry. Ken. Ken is the one who has the problem. I'm sorry. I could ask Ken, what do you have to do? It's Monday night. What do you have to do until next Sabbath in order to be on the 10? So what do you have to do? Think, whatever you think about Peter, what do you have to do that when you go to church next Sabbath, you'll almost have a weapon in your pocket? And then, in this way, I experience that people start to think about their inner relations and situations and thoughts and feelings. And even especially when it's about getting worse, they sometimes get a kind of, oh, they get shocked about their own fantasies. And this brings them themselves to the question, I don't want to be on the 10, I want to be on a 5. And I think I could get on a 5 when I talk to Mandy, because Mandy is a good friend of Peter, and I like her very much, and maybe I can tell her what I think, and she has an idea. Okay, so sometimes when I confront people with their own negative feelings, they pop back to the positive, because they get a shock about what they thought.
could you repeat the question to Ken?
The question to Ken?
Yeah. So
What
he had to do to come to a 10?
Yeah.
So how do I have to formulate or because
Yeah, you
how
just
do I
say,
have to say?
Ken, what would you have to do?
Yeah.
It's Monday night. What would you have to do until next Sabbath to be on a 10? I could talk to all the people from the youth club who don't like Peter. So do you know anyone who doesn't like Peter? Yes, I do know him and her don't like Peter. Okay, so meet Wednesday night and do a Peter session. I would not do it that intensively, but I mean, this I think is what happens in the fantasies of the people, and this is making them aware of what is happening inside. And this awareness could change. Not always. I know it for myself that in some things sometimes it does not. This is not the solution. It's just a technique that I've made good experiences with. And you don't have to be a counselor or a therapist to use this.
And do you experience the opposite? So you make negative questions, so to say, and people get to a 10, actually, or not? Have you experienced
No.
anything? No.
Interestingly,
So it's
interestingly,
always that you ask them negative questions or put them in that limit situation, and they kind of go lower on scale.
this is what I've experienced.
Cool.
But what I also know is, that was an interesting question we discussed yesterday in the workshop. It was the same topic. We talked about situations that cannot be solved and people need a separation. It could be that Ken and Peter are so deeply into their conflict that it's better to be separate.
That's not a problem.
That's how it is then. And then I have to separate them in order not to let the wounds get deeper. You know, this creativity for a solution should not be naive. Oh, we can solve any problem. Come on, you just need some more creativity, and we'll make it. Oh, come on, he just spanked you 2 times. You know, he's just been whatever. Don't care too much about it. Taking it very seriously. And when sometimes there is no solution at hand. And for this we need a separation that helps. But I would never say get separated, and I would always say I would like to meet with you on a regular basis to talk about your feelings and thoughts. And it's good when Peter has someone too, in order to not to forget that again and let it become chronic, that it's getting more and more fixed. Could anyone tell me what time it is?
10.
10 plus 2.
Thank you very much. That's good. Okay, that's a good situation to come to the next exercise, the next attitude. I always have too much material. This is why I always get at 10 past 12. I get to a situation where I have to shorten the things and see what we can do. Sometimes, when I'm in a conflict with a person or a situation, for me, individually feels totally negative. I don't catch a glimpse of anything good in the situation or in the other person. But it is there, even though it might seem to be the tiniest thing ever in the world. So I also, and this is what I do in my own prayer practice, this is not easy for me, because there are many people out there who I really have a hard time with. People I don't like, and people I'm thankful that God doesn't say I have to be good friends with everyone. Agape love works without feelings. I'm very happy about that. God knows what I need. But that I discipline myself to look for the good in others. This works wonderfully with couples. Because couples who are in a problematic situation and who come into a counseling situation normally love each other. But there must have been a situation in their life where they loved each other intensively. They might have lost the connection to it. And sometimes it's always in the first time I meet with couples, I always ask for, or in the second, whatever happens, but first or second talking with couples, I ask for what was it that they attracted at each other. And once I experienced that a couple came very sad, they had many problems, and I just asked them if they could say 3 things. After 20 minutes talking, I asked them for 3 things they could say that what they love and what they get attractive at their spouse. And these 2 people, and I gave them a card to write it down, and these 2 people started talking, one card after the other, and after 25 minutes, the whole table, this size, was full of wonderful things they said about each other. That was great! It, of course, didn't solve the problem. But, you know what I want to say? They got into a totally other mood. And this changed their perspective. And over the last 2 years working together, we always had the chance to make a connection to, do you remember? It was May 15, I don't know, May 15, 2 years ago, what you said about your husband? Yes, that's right, yeah. And this is how I experienced it. So they got the sight of looking to the good. It's easier with couples because they love each other. Ken and Peter don't love each other. Yeah, they are not married. Seeing what is good. Another example. Insel Kimberg. Have you ever heard of Insel Kimberg and Steve DeShazer? Steve DeShazer and Insel Kimberg, they are a couple. They've passed away already, but they are well-known psychologists who were the founders of the solution-focused therapy. So a therapy that is really trying not to talk much about the problem, but finding solutions. And Insel Kimberg, she worked in I guess in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in a family support setting, which had a force setting. So she was sent to the families, and the families had to accept the support because the situation for the kids was really hard. Kindswohlgefährdung. So the state had to think about taking the kids out of this family or not. And she said that she was sent to a young mother, teenage mother, 17 years old, who had a baby. She came into this apartment the first time. The mother was smoking, and the baby was lying in her diapers, and it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And this baby had not got a new diaper yet for this day. You know, I'm a middle-class citizen, well-educated. I would close the door, get home to my office, and say, this kid has to leave this mother immediately because this is awful what's happening there. And I would get all these ideas that I have about all these people who make our society proud because they don't get themselves together, whatever. And Insel Kimberg, solution-focused, understands herself as a detective in finding good things, however tiny they might be. And she was meeting this woman, this young mother, for like 2 or 3 times, with just one question in her head. Is there anything this mother is able to do? Is there anything good that she can do? Because if we find something that is good, and this woman understands why this works out, she can take these principles and transfer them to other situations, or just start to repeat the good. If we are only looking about what is not there, this is typical German. We Germans always look on the things that don't work. Because the things that work. We don't have to talk about them. We're just talking about the bad things that have to change. But this, for me, doesn't have much potential for change. Because when I talk about the things that are not there, I always have to create something out of nothing. There's the problem. Okay. How to solve this problem? I don't know. This is the problem. Okay. I don't have any idea. But when I look and try to find the good things that this person or myself is able to do, I can use this strength to change, to get potential and creativity and strength to change the problem. Insel Kimberg, after 3 hours meeting this woman, found out this is laughable. Actually, this is laughable. But she found out that every day at 6 p.m., this mother, once a day, is able to change her baby's diapers. Laughable. Once a day at 6 o'clock. Everybody who has babies knows what I'm talking about. And then she sat down with this woman and says, how do you do that? How do you do that? That you, at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening, you change your baby's diapers? For sure, this woman did not await this question because she was accustomed to people coming from the state, family support, and just judging her, evaluating her, putting her in fixed frames. And Insel Kimberg spent minutes and hours talking with this woman, watching her doing it, and found out why and in which way she's able to do that. And this made this young mother a little stronger, because she was feeling like there's someone who is valuing what I am able to, which is not much. And after talking about it, how she makes it, and after having the mother talking much about what she's doing and how she's doing it at 6 o'clock in the evening, Ezekiel Burke asked the question, okay, so why don't do the same thing tomorrow morning at 7? And do you know what the mother answers? Yes, why not? After 3-4 weeks, she was regularly changing the baby's diapers. I've not experienced the story, but every time when I tell it, I get a gooseflash. Because this woman in Sickenburg was able to see the dignity in the person, who from side of the society didn't have any dignity. Just cost money.
Can you just write the name of the psychologist?
Yeah, yeah, I will. She's Chinese, I guess, or Vietnamese.
Yeah. I didn't understand the name at all.
Okay.
Even though you repeated it,
Okay.
I really
Yeah.
didn't get it.
And her husband is Steve the Chaser. When you Google that, you will find. Okay, I would say these are books I could really recommend, even for, and you don't have to be a therapist, because they really have an interesting focus on solutions. In the therapy context, they also have a lot of critiques, because we sometimes think they should give the problem a little more space. Because sometimes I need it that you see my problem. It has to do with valuing it. And Steve the Chaser is the solution man. But the aspects and the inputs you can get from him are very, very valuable. And this brings me to the last one, and I'm again looking for my presenter. Which sounds alike, but it's a little different. Assuming the good, in my understanding, means I try to see you as a person who does his best or her best in any situation, even though it doesn't appear your best to me. Ken and Peter, in their problematic relationship, I don't know if you've experienced that. I think this is something that we've all experienced in any kind of way, that people we are friends with today, we had a time with where we didn't like them. I know some people, some colleagues even, when you would have asked me 10 years ago if I could ever imagine to work with them, I would have said, no, never. And today we are good friends. I'm sure that our relationships change over our strength and not over our weaknesses. So I would wait until I would work with Peter and Ken, especially with Ken, until on the scale they are on like 4 or 3, so that they might have a little window that we can open to think about the other one in a little positive way. So is there anything about Peter or about Ken that could be interesting or nice, even if it's just the soccer club, whatever, or the way he uses his jeans, I don't know. When Jesus opens my eyes for the strength of the other, we have more chances to change our relationship as if I only look on the weaknesses of the other and wait that he or she changes. So here again, we need this, this way of looking for the good in the other. Because the good opens new possibilities. And I have never experienced, not in my own life and not in counseling settings, what you just asked about this negative questions. I've never experienced that we can exaggerate the good and forget the problems. I'm in a coaching process with my church. It's a church that was founded 10 years ago, very creative, very chaotic, and I became the pastor 3.5 years ago and had to, I'm the one who has to save this church. This is what the conference said. And I'm not the savior, you know. I'm not good in this. I'm more a founder than someone who's the leader who's leading them. And we are in a coaching process. Laszlo Szabo is helping us there, but we more often meet without him because he's far away in Friedenthal. And last coaching, I started with, before we get into talking about the things we talk about, what are you thankful for in this church? And the first look for Northern Germans was like, we are here to solve problems. Don't ask questions, but we're working together. This is, the psychology stuff you young pastors learn to ask good questions. But you know what we've experienced? We've experienced that it took us 1 hour laughing, making jokes, getting into a happy mode because there are so many things that we are thankful and happy for in our church. And I, as the pastor, came to a point where I said, okay, let's discipline a little bit. This was the last joke, we have to go to our agenda. And they said, like, no, it's okay, we're just looking out, last Sabbath we experienced this, and it was so funny. And I'm still flying on this wave. It's 2 weeks ago. It made something with us. It changed the perspective. What we Germans need, we need to look away from the problem that we have to solve to the good that is already there, that we are assuming in each other, that we are seeing in the church, even though there are so many more things that are so problematic. Because this is where the energy for change comes from. Because we're looking for benefits. And for benefits, we always need good things, good ideas. And out of a mood of positive ideas and positive feelings, I have a totally different situation when I talk about problems. Because these problems seem to be much more able to be solved than if I just get in this problem trance. I could talk for more hours, but I think this is the essence of what I understand my workshop is for. Thank you very much for being here and listening and asking me questions and playing with the wool hand. Anything you would like to ask or add or propose before I pray? Okay. Okay, I'm here until Sunday morning, so we can talk whenever we meet. Okay, let's pray. Jesus, dear Jesus, you are the one with this multi-perspective love sight on our life. You see the good, you see the problems, and you give us your spirit to strengthen the good. I ask for everyone here in this room right now, for her and his personal setting in church, in the youth group, wherever, in their own personal families and relationships. I thank you that you bless them with your spirit and forever thoughts and problems they have to solve at the moment, that you help them gain a broader perspective to the solution. Because you are accompanying us on our way, and this is what I'm very thankful for. Amen. Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.